Welcome to Stampscaping 101. I'm taking a break from my kind of beginner types of lessons from the rubber stamping for the first time book to go over a piece by Ryan Swift. Okay, this is going back to late, let's see, December 2020 with the Stamp Wars challenge where they used Nature Set number 6 in that challenge, and it was a fantastic time. Really cool watching that event. Check it out in the Nancy Stamps channel. I'll put a link to it in the description here. But they do what they do is they did 2 cards, I think, and they had to do 2 envelopes for those cards in a set amount of time. It was really great fun to watch live as they were doing it. But what they do is they do each one of the participants does a card using whatever set or whatever stamps that were used in that challenge on their own channels afterwards. And Ryan did this one. I'll try to find this particular video and put it in the link section below as well. But Ryan did a really fantastic card here. Slimline card, really dark and kind of moody piece. It just has a really fantastic look to it. And this little quote here that he put down here is really perfect for this piece and that reversed out appearance. Okay, but what I'm getting at here is that he was doing this card right here, okay, first, and he felt that, oh my god, he kind of messed up on it or something like that. And I was watching live when he was doing this on his channel, and I said, hey, don't throw that away, you know, if he was going to throw it away, because I think he was. And I just said, hey, just, you know, mail it out to me or whatever. And I seem to recall doing that. And I just got around to photographing all of these pieces of theirs and some other people's scenes that they people had sent to me. And out comes this piece, and it says, please fix me. Thanks, Ryan. So that was that card. And I thought I would do something with that. And I had just done some embossing yesterday, and I thought this would be a perfect place for this. The scene right here, I'm not going to improve on this card right here. This thing is awesome. And it also has that, oh my god, I forgot, it was that shiny spray that he spritzed this with that gave it this iridescence to it. So here in this darkness, you have this glittery, kind of really reflective surface that you wouldn't see just looking at it, you know, the naked eye. But when you hold it up to the light, it has that sheen to it. So there's no improving on this, but we'll see what we can do in, I wouldn't say salvaging of this, because I never feel that a piece is kind of gone, kind of off the rails or something like that, where it can't be utilized, okay? I just think that this piece right here, it's just not finished, okay? Now, there was a lot of these darker tones in here, so we're going to be limited as far as kind of elements of light that are in this, unless we do reversed out things like text or something like that over the top of this. But one of the things that I've just experimented with, for me, for the first time, was embossing, okay? So I think I'm going to emboss some images over the front of this, and I'm going to do this piece in the spirit of this one that, you know, that he was creating it in, okay? I'm not just going to change you know, images or, you know, sets and just do a completely different thing, you know. Let's stay with the kind of the spirit in which this was kind of being developed at the time. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to add this lakeside cabin right in that center area, in that lit area, okay? Now, I mean, we could take this darker and just do these in reversed, kind of white on dark, okay? But he's retained enough of that light area in there through those jewel tone greens to just utilize this piece. Okay, so here's the color. The color that I'm going to use here is the Brilliance Black. I'm not sure what paper he's using. It looks really similar to the satin one that I use. I don't think it's a matte, okay? So I'm going to do this in this Brilliance Black because I can heat set it and it can dry right away. Plus, it's also a dark, thick ink, so I think it'll build right over the top of this just fine. And when I emboss my foreground on there, I'm hoping that the embossing powder doesn't stick to the dry version of this. If it does a little bit, that's no problem. But by and large, I want to keep this somewhat matte looking. Okay, and that's what this ink dries to. It dries to a matte as opposed to being a glossy look. Okay, all right. So now I don't know where this is going. You know, it's like I said, I just started doing embossing like yesterday. So let's see what this looks like here. Okay, so going for a good impression, large stamps, you go left, center, right. If you're using a platform where you're stamping it like this, I mean, you can always hit it twice if you don't hit, but still do kind of the, vertical pressure over the different sections of the, on larger stamps you want to do that. And it's not just the larger stamps, it's not just the area, it's the amount of surface area of a stamp. So if this was an outline, okay, you don't have to apply very much pressure to it at all, okay? But there's a lot of surface area to most of the Stampscape stamps because they're tonal, they're not linear stamps, okay? All right, so that has been stamped down there. What I'll do, this is the perfect opportunity for a little bit of lighting within that structure there. I'm going to do some interior lighting so it looks very welcoming. When you do interior lit structures, there's something to that. It's like you're coming home and, it's dark and whatnot, and you see this kind of illuminated interior of a, in this case, a cabin, and it's just a very welcoming type of appearance from an emotional standpoint. And that's what we're trying to do with a lot of scenes, or at least I am. I'm doing things that are visual, of course, because we're in a visual medium here. It's not music or something like that, or, I don't know, sculpture in some sense it's kinesthetic as well, but I'm trying to create kind of emotional, I don't know, connections here with anyone that might view these pieces, and then it becomes something, more kinesthetic, and I don't know, when you break into another sense with visuals, it just adds to that extra. It adds a little bit of, or a lot extra, to the entire viewing experience. Okay, now I'm stamping this blackout on here, and it really stands out against this, but I'm going to spray seal this, which is going to give it a real nice deep vibrancy, so the contrast between this black and that background will not be the same as it looks right now, okay? The background will be much more deep, rich, and saturated with more kind of, those types of tones right there. I love the envelope that Ryan made. I don't know if he made it. I think he made this. Okay, so it's like in the same color scheme as the card. Okay, so there we have that. I have overlapped into my impression. I don't want to overlap like 3 inches into it and stamp right over the top of the cabin, but you overlap a good amount, okay? That's one of the biggest things that people have to kind of get used to when doing Stampscape stamps. You have to kind of free up a little bit, okay? Meaning you're doing less kind of particulars in terms of careful placement, being careful not to overlap things, to color into the things next to it, It's doing less, but it is kind of breaking some habits that a lot of people have from other forms of stamping, okay? Meaning you're kind of stamping things out, you're being careful not to overlap, you're masking, positioning carefully, coloring within lines, okay? That's needed for outline styles of stamping, okay? But with something where you want everything to kind of be blended together, that not only isn't necessary, but it's not conducive for the overall kind of seamless look of it. So what does that mean? it means it's easier in terms of the applications, but if you've been doing that for a while, sometimes it's harder to break out of that kind of habit, but it's really less work to do those types of things if you can just remove a lot of the kind of the tedium out of the process. Okay, so we have that laid out down there. I've stamped the trees. I blotted it off, or I did the second impression of the trees upside down in the water to give it that reflective type of quality. I don't know if we'll be able to see those at all, when we spray seal this. And when I also put some trees over the front of this in an embossing technique. But we might as well put it down there just in case. I think it lends itself. It adds to the whole kind of kind of the visual depth and essence of the piece. It's like a sub-mark, that's kind of buried, in the finished results. Right. Now, I don't know if you could tell as I was heat setting that, but those glossy trees went from kind of a more glossy, having a glossy sheen to them, to more of a matte look, okay? Now, I'm going to spray seal this with a glossy spray, so all of that will kind of come back, but hopefully we can kind of achieve even a greater sense of depth, though, with the use of that embossing on here. I don't know what that's going to look like, okay? This is new to me, and I'm not quite sure just how dark these will look against that background. But let's check it out. Okay, let's see. Let's move on to another stamp right here. This is the water pattern, and you can see the water pattern down here that he's used, and he used it excellently because it's not like a full black down here, okay? It's been kind of used over here, but then in the lighter areas, it's like the second impression of it. So it's a light in the light and darker in the dark. You can't really see it too much out here because it got really dark, but you can see it enough. So there's enough of that range of values in there. Okay, now this is that aqua kind of look right here. So I tell you what, one of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm going to alter it from just using black. This is a greenish, emerald greenish tone scene, right? So I'm going to use green, a darker green, in that green area. But I'll take this green and then I'll blot it, okay? And I'll go with a lighter version of green in here. There's something kind of sealing that off. That didn't give me a very good impression. Okay. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there's something kind of like a resist down there. I'm not sure what types of inks were used down there, but you see that right there? So we get that kind of darker green out there, but you can't see that green over here because this color is darker than that green. So that's where you use like a black over here. Okay, I think that's the thing that'll show up in that area. So lighter shadows in the lighter area. Does that make sense? Okay. And darker shadows in the darker areas. And that's what you see, like on fabrics or whatnot. See this like speedball right here, this holder right here. See this area in here is just a darker version of this. This area with light on it is a lighter version of this color, okay? So you use color. I mean, you can stamp it all out in black, but if you want to kind of really push depth and values and kind of the color scheme more, then you use colors out of your color scheme. Okay, so here's the black. I'm stamping the black in that really dark area, okay? So see this right here? You have darker versions and lighter versions of that same texture. right, let's see now. Let's let's heat set that. I'm not used to heat setting dye-based inks, but because we're using doing the embossing, I think I should. All right, now one thing that I just don't know, not having embossed before until, what was it, yesterday? Um, I'm not quite sure if I should spray seal this right now and then emboss, or should I just do the embossing now and then spray seal? Or it doesn't even matter, I don't know. If you know the answer, please leave it in the comment section below. All right, now I tell you what, I usually use a white in here, but there's no white anywhere else in here. So I'm going to use kind of more of a beige tone for my interior lighting on that cabin. All right. So this is kind of coming together. I mean, I haven't even done, the other things on here, and, I think that looks pretty good as far as a scene's developing. Now, if I spray seal this is going to be like much deeper and richer of a surface. All right, shaking up my pen right here. Get it flowing. Sometimes you really got to shake these pens up quite a bit to get them nice and opaque. Some of them are more opaque than others. Let me test this out here. Okay, so I'm going into the windows here. All right, see that little interior lighting there? This is looking really translucent for some reason. Let me shake it up a bit more. That might be a little bit too light or yellowy. Okay, let me see if I can get a kind of a little bit more opacity out of this. Okay, there we go. I needed to shake it up more. The thing that really makes you shake these things up to get a really good opaque mark out of it is also the thing that keeps these things from clogging. So it's that little trade-off. See, you really have to shake these up every time to get them, the paint and the binder, which is just water, really mixed up. Okay, now I'm adding some of these little highlights underneath my window, and then there's a little reflection area. I drew it right into the design. In there. Yeah, there's something really waxy on this area down here. I was having a hard time getting kind of a good impression in that area. I was saying it, that thing that keeps it from clogging, but I've dug up some of my... Oh! Okay, this is what I've done. I've dug up some of my pigment ink. Okay. I forgot that was the brilliance that I used on there, and it went up in the tip. So, let me see. Okay, it's not clogged. I thought it was a little bit clogged. It's just so light I can't even see it. Okay, so here. Oh, okay, it's working perfectly. Yeah. Now, I'm not making all this up right down here, okay? It's in the design, so like on the tops of rocks, I have a little highlight on top of it. So I'm just reiterating it with this, okay? So there we have that. Okay, so you have that little illuminated area by the cabin. All right. And let's get to the embossing, I think. I might want some additional little sparkles on this water too. Let's just do that right now. Okay. I'm adding little highlights down here on the water's surface. As it moves away from the light into these darker areas, I just use less. I spread out my dots, okay? That makes sense, kind of a heavier concentration of reflected light in the light areas, and in the dark areas, you don't put so much. All right? Okay, let's see what we can do here with some embossing. All right, there's the pine tree that comes in the set. I'm going to use the VersaFine Clear. I used that in conjunction with the clear yesterday, and I thought that looked pretty good. Ryan didn't use that one in here, but I'm going with a little bit of a larger shape here on this piece, just because I want more embossing on this one. I want this, I might as well be killing two birds with one stone in terms of finishing off this card, but also kind of playing around with my new, I don't know, new favorite thing to do, emboss. It's a very old thing, though, as far as a technique goes, right? Some of you probably did embossing, but maybe you haven't done it for 20 years. I got some comments that, they emboss everything. That's awesome. Alright, so see those trees like that? I'm changing the height and kind of overlapping some a little bit more than others. Spread them out sometime. Okay, I'm going to leave a bit of an opening in here too, okay? Just for that visual entry point for the viewer. All right. Okay, we have that. It's interesting just seeing the bare Claire contrasted against the dry Brilliance. They're both pigment inks, but, they are different. One of them is oil-based as well, and one of them is water-based. I was shocked when I found out about this Brilliance being water-based. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be because it's a fast drying ink, and what oil-based thing is going to dry fast? So, oh, okay. One of the things that Ryan did too, he used the Reed's stamp in his. Okay, I'll just use a little bit of it. Okay, I'll use it in kind of that entry point. I don't know if it would be there, but in these trees, we'll say these trees aren't, or we'll say I don't know. We're on a hill. Kind of a little bit closer, and the trees are kind of a little bit down below us, so we're adding kind of an extra layer of depth here. Okay. All right. All right, here comes, I'm going to emboss and clear. Okay, I think that was my favorite combination that I tried. I need to totally experiment and not get locked into something after one day of kind of experimenting with these powders. Excuse me. Okay, let's see. So with embossing, are you supposed to let those soak in at all? Or do you just kind of tap it off immediately? That's I don't know about I don't know those types of like embossing basics, or does it depend on the ink you're using? I'm going to tap off now. Okay, I don't see any of that clear stuck to my dry Brilliance ink. Okay, so that wasn't a problem. I get some of it stuck in a couple areas though. Let's see. All right, I think that's ready to go. All right. You know what? I think. Oh my gosh. I remember when someone went to a convention. This looking at this reminds me of this. Someone went to a convention. You know how stampers, they take stuff on the plane with them. They're going home. Whatever. But I think someone got kind of pulled aside to check out their embossing powders that they had. And it probably had some white embossing powder or something like that, on a plane. And, they got pulled out into, one of those other rooms and whatnot. I don't know. That was I don't remember when that was, but that story is very familiar. I don't remember where or who it was, but I do recall the story. Okay, so let's hit this with the heat. That is a fun process. I'm just I'm still used to not applying so much concentrated heat in any one area for too long, but it went better than yesterday. Yesterday, I don't know, I didn't melt, a couple little areas so that when I went in to it with some extra ink, it was kind of smearing about and whatnot. Okay, so I'm wondering about a quote stamp instead of doing it on this separate strip, although that would be a good idea to do because that looks really cool. I'm thinking about just going directly on here, but I'm thinking about doing it in white, though. I could still do it over here in that darker area, I think. It would have to be above these trees, and I would probably emboss it in white. Or I could just stamp it in the Brilliance, and it would be more translucent over that area. Maybe that wouldn't be a good idea, because I'm not sure how dark that's going to be in there. We might have to go with the embossing. Okay, so let me figure out what to do as far as that goes. All right, our collaborative piece is going to be called Silence. There's a lot of noise in the world. But this piece is going to be characterized by silence. Silence and tranquility, hopefully, and all of those good things. Okay, I'm kind of hesitant to put my hand over that, but I mean, it should be fine, right? It's embossed, it's set now. But I don't know, I'm used to what I'm used to. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try to get this mostly in this area because in the that lighter area, the white over that light won't be it won't stand out as much because there won't be enough contrast there. So, all right, I'm doing this in the Hero Hues unicorn white. Okay, not in the Brilliance. The Brilliance might dry too fast before I get the powder on, or maybe it doesn't get enough powder on there. Okay, so silence right there, and I'm going to hit it with the white detailed powder. The one that got someone detained at the airport. I don't know, maybe it's more like the clear powder. Yeah, I think that's going to work. This emboss, I don't know, I'm usually going for kind of the fastest, most expedient card with the looks that I'm going for, of course. So I usually haven't embossed, well, I haven't embossed anything, but I haven't embossed things like words, and the words, I don't know, like when I'm doing reverse text, white over dark, in some instances it's occurred to me, I could use a lighter print of those words, so I should probably start embossing them. All right, so that was white on white. If I did clear on that Hero Arts white, I don't think it would be light enough. All right, so silence. Okay. Now, what I am going to do now on this piece is to go in, and I'm going to add some stars. I am going to add in some of these white stars in this, just to kind of fill out that area. And I'm going to do it now. I mean, I could do it after I spray it, but right now I could see where all my background trees are, okay? Because there's enough contrast back there between that. I'm not sure how dark. I'd imagine this is going to get pretty dark when I spray seal, just because of those really deep saturations of ink that have been laid down. It should be nice and rich. Okay. I think that should do it. All right. So the thing that I'm going to be spraying with is a Krylon UV resistant clear. Okay. That's not like some kind of like ideal thing. I don't know. I figured the UV spray as opposed to the Krylon crystal clear, which is kind of meant to be sprayed on anything. The UV resistant spray is a little bit more geared towards art pieces. So let's see what this looks like, okay? And let's see that glossiness. So the glossiness, we're not going to have so much contrast between the glossy foreground embossed images and the background after I spray seal this. So, but I think it'll look pretty cool. Okay, there we have it. The spray sealed and matted piece. Okay, you can see the difference in the color saturations. Okay, but look at that, kind of three-dimensional embossed look to the piece. See those embossed pieces capture that light right there, so they stand out from the background with that little bit of light. Here's kind of less light on them. You know, see that? Capturing that light right in there. I don't know, it's a nice kind of, I guess, addition to the look of these pieces. Okay, I'm going to try some of this white pigment ink on here. I like it as is, but I thought, I want to see a little bit of a textural change in here. As I usually do. So I'm just going to apply this right in some of the light areas, okay? I'm going to apply like a very faint amount too, because like I said, this is a dark scene, okay? So there's not a lot of white light in there. I introduced it with the use of the white pen, but for the stars. So we can introduce some of this white in terms of reflected light, but I'll be pretty, what's the word, judicious with my application of it, I think. Okay. So yeah, when I tap it with my finger, I'm kind of removing some of the ink there. Okay. And then we'll make a couple of these stars a little bit more soft with a kind of a little bit more of a glowing type of look. I won't do too much, that really stands out. Let's see, let's do a couple down here. Okay, remember that if you watched other videos, that this ink is going to dry lighter or darker than what it looks like right now. So I'm applying a little bit more than I think looks ideal. In other words, white stands out too much. But when it dries, it usually kind of it moves more towards transparency. It's not transparent, but it moves in that direction down the translucency scale. Okay, so that's what that looks like that. Okay, is there a little bit of texture in there? Just right in there. I don't know, and even like that little glowing star. I mean, that really stands out in that area, doesn't it? Okay, so there you have it. I'm looking at the that embossing on there again. I think that really looks pretty cool. So apparently you can go black on black now with the embossing, okay? Because it stands out enough against, black imagery and darker backgrounds like that. For these types of, nighttime scenes. So that really opens up some doors. And look at these reeds here. The reeds almost look like they're embossed higher. I mean, they're not, but yeah, maybe, I don't know. I thought looking at it like that, it looked like the reeds were even raised over that embossing, but I don't know. Okay, so I think that looks pretty cool. I like Ryan's finish, but and that's cardy, probably even more than mine, but I don't know. It's kind of a good comparison contrast about ways you can finish it off, pieces from the very foundation and whatnot. I mean, I think this is a pretty good looking card here, but it comes to show you, see, in certain types of stamping, when you're working with certain types of imagery, like outline designs, they're minimal. They're about contours, okay? So that if you have something going on in the background that you don't like, it's harder to obscure it. You can certainly color in those objects, or you can color things in, print out, or cut out, paste right over the top, and whatnot. But in scenic stamping, if you have something kind of going on in the background that you don't like, especially if it's a foundation layer before your images, you can do all kinds of things to it because it's the bottom layer and you're going to be putting things right over the top of that. And you might put 3 or 4 more layers of something. It could be imagery or it could be media. I could have splatter painted this and it could have been like, a little dusting of snow or something like that. The white pigment ink could be laid on there. So there's all kinds of things where you keep pushing um, those sub layers back visually into the distance, and it doesn't really become, you know what I mean? It's not something right in the forefront like it was when you were first creating it without any of the other things on top of that. It was like the most visual thing. It's the only layer. But when it becomes the bottom layer of like 5 layers of other types of things, even if it's not covering it up, these other types of things take a precedent in terms of the most visual part of the scene. So, you keep going back and then eventually you get to that. So it just becomes more of a kind of contributor to the overall piece than, you know, a piece in itself, which is what it looked like when you were first creating it. Does that make sense? All right, so anyway, oops, sorry about that. Hope you enjoyed it. Ryan, thanks for the foundation there. It was fun to build up on that and to create a scene out of it. And thanks, as always, for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.